The title of this podcast is Remember, Everything is an Opportunity for the Practice. In a lot of areas of my life, I have been really of diligent in making sure that I apply the practice to everything, except that there is one area that has not been the case. And several months ago, I talked about this idea or this concept of drift, that if you're not careful, that the things that you once did really, really well, if you start to lay off of them or don't stay as committed, not in an obsessive way, but in a way that is just part of your routine, mindful routine, that if you don't do those things, then you'll start to see yourself move further and further away from where you initially set out to go, from your goal. A lot of examples include like exercise. If you don't make it a priority, you'll find yourself slowly drifting from being as physically fit as you could be. Nutrition is another example. You know, you set a goal for how you want to nourish your body. And if you don't stay diligent, again, not obsessive, but diligent with that commitment, you'll find yourself drifting further and further away from eating things that support your goals. And before you know it, you put on an inch or two, or you don't feel as good as you normally do when you eat well. And the same thing applies for me regarding the practice. The more and more I start the day off with my practice, it increases the chances of me having a day with minimal suffering, and at the very least, getting through the day better than I would have had I not started with the practice. And at the best, just going through the day feeling completely light, lit up, energized, ready to serve, eyes wide open and conscious. So what I mean by this title today, about, remembering to use everything that shows up as a practice, is that there's an area in which I have noticed this drift. And I've noticed it for a while, but, it took me a moment to get serious about stopping it in its tracks. And at work, at Mayo Clinic, there has been kind of like this sea change to where there's this emphasis on parts of the business that support patient care, but patient care has always been the priority. And and the way that it has landed or the direction has been perceived by me and my colleagues who do the direct clinical work is that there has been this, hyper focus on the financials in a way that it seems to be making it difficult to continue to prioritize not only patient care but optimal patient care in terms of the time that we get to spend with patients, which is and people are still doing a fantastic job of taking care of our patients, but also the well-being of each other and all of our staff. So and sometimes it feels like both of those things are not being uh, tended to at the same level, with the same kind of focus. And so that is really been pretty challenging to our staff. So this comes back to me hearing this from our staff as I go through and try to support them to try to still use, a wellness-centered approach, to use the practice, to do the things that are within your control, minimize suffering so that the best you can show up to do the work that we're all there to do. And I have been doing an okay job of that, but I could do a lot better at it. And part of that is because I have kind of like, while I'm not directly in with patient care, I'm working closely with the people that do, and I am able to observe how this is causing, is increasing burnout, affecting their ability to do the job at the level that they would like to because they feel all of these external pressures, and they feel like they're not being listened to or heard, and they feel like it's an either or proposition that is coming down from the top, which is we have to do these numbers, numbers, numbers. And what they and my colleagues have a deep uh, understanding, and they also appreciate that the number part of it is important, but it doesn't have to be either or, the numbers or staff well-being. It can be both. And so how do we do both? And my biggest thing that I have done in regards to have experienced in regards to drift is I find myself having more conversations internally and with others about the things that are frustrations that are outside of my control. And while it is important to acknowledge the reality of the situation, I think it's helpful for me to also be really clear that one problem is better than two. That while, you know, what the organization is saying that we have to do and that we're charged with doing now is problem number one. And that is something that I can't change. It's outside of my control. I don't want to create problem number two, which is suffering over this direction that has been really been moving forward and being pushed over the last year plus. I can't create problem number two. Not if I want to continue to preserve my well-being, show up in the most effective way that I can. I can't be bogged down by that. I can't have any energy channeled or siphoned off in a way that is not helpful to how I want to experience life in the world and the difference that I want to make. I got to stay focused and keep the main thing, which is using everything that happens in life, everything that happens through the course of the day as life unfolds as an opportunity for me to grow and be my best self. I've applied this everywhere else, and except here, I've noticed that I've started to drift. So my commitment to myself is that when something happens that hits my stuff at work that's not to my liking, or I see the way that something is affecting a colleague, my commitment to myself is to acknowledge that I understand it, have compassion and empathy for the colleague, and then ask in the face of this, how can I be helpful? How can I be most helpful? Resistance isn't helpful. Complaining about it isn't helpful. But I want to listen in a way that I can say, in the face of this new reality of things we can't control, what is it that I can do that might be helpful? One of the things that I read a while back, I think maybe Eckhart Tolle said it, that if a situation occurs and if you can't help make it better, then don't make it worse. And I have this, Keith 1.0 has this knack of making things worse by complaining about expressing frustration. So one of the things that I've done is I've asked colleagues to share with me a frustration or a pebble in the shoe, and for us to partner constructively, sometimes with the use of AI, sometimes not, to address that frustration together in a very constructive way. So I've done this in every other area of my life, and I want to get back on track of doing this. So while I've drifted away, I want to redirect or get back on course with keeping the main thing, and to show up the best way that I can. And those are the people that I'm most inspired by. So again, I think it's okay to acknowledge when you are observing yourself react to something that is not to your liking, or observing that frustration is building. But it's also important to remember that you are not the frustration. You are the one that is observing the frustration. And when you do that, you can be helpful in trying to make things better. And I think about it from the perspective of a surgeon, right? One thing that makes them incredibly effective is that when they are caring for someone in need, that they are able to observe what's going on in a very objective way, as opposed to being so caught up in it that they are so identified with it that they think it's happening to them, and they lose the focus of objectivity, of being constructive to see what can be done about it. And so I am trying to be really objective, and the practice helps me do that. So I can be effective and hopefully making things better. And at the very least, I'm not making things worse.